The 65th pick to the New York Jets. With the 65th pick in the 2024 draft, the New York Jets select Malachi Corley.
Yeah!
Wow!
Let's go!
Yeah! Let's go! Jets!
The New York Jets have a brand new wide receiver. Welcome to New York, Malachi Corley. I want to go over my thoughts on the selection as well as a few picks that I think the New York Jets should target in the 4th, 6th, and 7th rounds coming up these next few picks here. But let's hop into it. Malachi Corley becomes the newest member of the New York Jets. Really excited for this. This was a player that I identified prior to this day's draft and also the last few weeks or so. A gadget type player, Deebo Samuel, Quincy Enunwa kind of player, violent with the ball in his hands. This is going to be someone that's going to put Gibson a little bit further back on the depth chart, but now you have a legitimate slot option that I think is going to create a very, very fun dynamic that you can add into the offense. This is a converted running back wide receiver that is known as the Yak King. Aaron Rodgers, I said it before, the last 2 MVPs he won, he relied heavily on the yak side of things, and I think having Garrett Wilson, having Breece Hall, and now adding Malachi Corley to this group is just giving you another home run type threat. I am really, really high on this. What really makes this cool is for all those people that were like, the Jets just got to cut Zach Wilson, they got to forget about it. It was smart to hold on to him because Zach Wilson, the New York Jets traded him and pick 256, got pick 203. Then we took pick 203 and we traded down from pick 10 to pick 11. We gave up pick 203, but we got back pick 157. Then we traded 157 plus our 72 overall pick up to get to number 66 to get Malachi Corley, which means Zach Wilson basically gave us Malachi Corley. So if you're asking me, would I rather have cut Zach Wilson and eaten the $5 million from his salary, or trade him, save $2.75 million that maybe you bring Connor McGovern back with or some other type of player, and get 4 years of contractual control from Malachi Corley? Yes, I'm going to take the trade and Malachi Corley 10 times out of 10. This was really fun to see. Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh reportedly sharing some text messages earlier today, this by way of the Jets Twitter account. No matter what, Malachi Corley, Robert Saleh sends over to Joe Douglas, and Joe Douglas, no matter what. It just makes me feel good when this sort of stuff happens, when you get the guy you identify as saying, like, that's the dude that's going to help us out. And based on the phone calls that you saw in the Jets war room, this seems like they're really, really excited for this. Now, he's had over 11 touchdowns in each of the last 2 years. He had a big season in 2022, had the Yak King title given to him, and then he had an option. And this is something that I thought was really cool and probably one of the more interesting things that I saw come out about Malachi Corley. And this was, he was offered a $350,000 to $400,000 NIL deal, name, image, likeness deal in college. Money from other schools after his big season in 2022, but he stayed at Western Kentucky out of loyalty, he said. Now, that to me is a really big personality trait. The Jets are obviously trying to bring in some really good personalities across the entirety of their team. There's a certain type of player that they are bringing in, and Malachi Corley and Olu Fashanu both align with that. Olu already talking about playing tackle, maybe guard, having a little bit of flexibility there. Malachi Corley is a chess piece you can put all over the place. But these are the types of players and mentalities that I really think are important to building a team and building things the right way. I'm a big, big fan of Malachi Corley. I could not have been happier based on any of the receivers that you could have wound up getting at that particular slot there in the, was it 3rd round? I guess we broke the 2nd round streak, right? We didn't take a receiver in the 2nd round like we thought we might trade up to. We traded up to the first pick of the 3rd round, and you can't have a 2nd round bust if you take him in the 3rd round. So Malachi Corley, really excited about that. Now, as far as 3 other players that I want to identify, mainly because we have the 3 4th round picks. You got 3 4th round picks, you got the 6th round pick, and you got the 7th round pick, Mr. Irrelevant, at the end of the draft. So I don't really know where I want to go with the 6th and the 7th round pick necessarily, but some other players that I want to identify. It's more of a cluster of position groups that I really like. So first off, I do want to try and get a backup quarterback, and there's a few names that pop into mind here. And I guess you could kind of argue which 4th round pick or where you would want to go in day 3. But backup quarterback is someone that I would really like to bring in. Jordan Travis, Michael Pratt, Spencer Rattler, and Joe Milton are kind of the 4 names that are sticking out to me at this point in time. Joe Milton, probably the worst of the 4 in this little stretch here. Not that he's the worst of the 4, but like very, very raw. Like, you'd probably want to take him a little bit later, have him go on the practice squad for a season. Rattler listed as one of the higher players left on the draft board. Him and Pratt are kind of back and forth as far as which one is better. I really like Michael Pratt. The Jets have met with Michael Pratt 4 times. They met with Rattler 3 times, and then they met with Jordan Travis 2 times. Jordan Travis out of FSU, I would say, is my favorite pick. I don't know if it's my favorite pick, but between Pratt and Travis, those are the 2 guys that I would particularly like to have as a backup quarterback. Pratt, I think, has a really high ceiling, lots of stuff that you could like with his game. Jordan Travis, you know what? I like the talent of Jordan Travis, and there's a few other things other than that. Like, I like the talent that he provides. Obviously, if he didn't have the injury, his team would have gone to the college football playoffs, and he could have really showed out against some really, really good teams. I wish we had gotten to see that out of him. But who knows? Maybe that injury and not being able to play against that talent is the reason why the Jets wind up getting a backup quarterback that can sit behind Aaron Rodgers for the next 4 years. Or 2 years on his 4-year contract. But Jordan Travis is interesting because he's also got the injury, so maybe there's a situation at the end of training camp, after he's gone through all his training, you wind up IRing him. He can't practice the rest of the season, but he'll be with the team. He'll be able to sit behind Tyrod Taylor and Aaron Rodgers, get that knowledge through osmosis, and it's a true redshirt year because you cannot activate him once he is IR'd. Now, you might say, why would you want to IR him? The Jets needed a backup quarterback last year. Why would you do that? Because Aaron Rodgers and Tyrod Taylor are going to be our 2 quarterbacks. The Jets carried 2 quarterbacks last year and 9 offensive linemen. The Jets and Joe Douglas said he wants to carry an additional offensive lineman. So if you want to carry a 3rd quarterback and you want to carry an extra offensive lineman, you now need to find 2 other players or at positions that you're going to have to get rid of. So more so than likely, I think the player that we're going to try and get for quarterback is going to be a player that you can either IR or put on the practice squad, because then that allows you to have that 10th offensive lineman. And I really like Jordan Travis because of it. Not to mention, like, I really like that Jermaine Johnson is on this team right now. And he played with Jordan Travis in college. There's a little bit of clout that comes with knowing a guy. And I feel like when one of our defensive leaders on the team has the backing or backs up the young quarterback coming in, there's a little bit more credibility that goes to him. And I think the ceiling is really high for Jordan Travis too. He would be a much higher draft pick if it were not for the injury that he sustained. So backup quarterback is definitely a position I would like to target. I think 2 years sitting behind Aaron Rodgers would really go a long way. And if we could IR or at least redshirt this rookie for a full season, bonus points there. But I'd be happy with any one of these 4 quarterbacks. I would also very much like if we look at wide receiver. I know we just took Malachi Corley, but I'm not opposed to double dipping here. Like, I don't need... Look, Mike Williams may not be ready for the start of the season. Big outside wide receiver. Does that mean Allen Lazard is going to step into that spot until he comes back? Sure, that's entirely possible. Could we also upgrade from Lazard, who I think is probably going to be cut at the end of next season? I do. Mike Williams, only here on a 1-year contract. So I'm looking for guys that are slightly bigger bodied framed, and any one of Javon Baker, Troy Franklin, Brendan Rice, or Tez Walker would be really intriguing for me. I know Johnny Wilson is an interesting name because of his massive size. He's like 6'7", the receiver out of FSU. But I don't love that tall of wide receivers. There tends to be like a lack of burst at that height. So if you can get me any one of these guys, Brendan Rice and Tez Walker, both being on the Jets Senior Bowl teams, Troy Franklin, a little bit more of like a Deshaun Jackson, 6'3", very thin framed receiver, but he's a guy that'll take the top off of a defense. And that's kind of something the Jets don't have right now. I've said before, like Brendan Rice, I would have been fine if we took him at 72, if that was the pick. But 6'3", lineage of Jerry Rice's son. I feel like that's always a nice thing to have. Always trained from a young age, how to eat, how to do everything the right way. I think that makes a lot of sense. Javon Baker, the guy's a stud. Like, literally any one of these 4 I'd be really pumped with. Tez Walker probably would have to develop a little bit. He didn't have as great of an offseason as you'd like to see him have, but very high upside guys here from the wide receiver core. Now, as far as the other picks go, I'm a little all over the place, and these are probably picks that you'd want to have a little bit higher, well, maybe half and half. The 3 players that I do really like at the 4th round point of this draft, Jaden Hicks, safety out of Kansas State. I think it's Kansas State. TJ Tampa. I don't know why it says Tamps on that. That's silly. TJ Tampa, the cornerback out of Iowa, is someone that what's his face? Kuiper had going in the 1st round a few times. So he like late 1st round pick or early second round pick, mid second round pick at the worst for TJ Tampa. You're telling me he's still available at the beginning of day 3? The Jets don't need a cornerback right now, but I don't think they're going to be able to re-sign both Michael Carter II and DJ Reed. I think more than likely at the end of the season, DJ Reed's probably going to wind up walking because you're going to have to pay Sauce at some point, and you got Michael Carter II. So if you can get some high upside corner in the back end, let him learn for a year. You got Eccles who's leaving at the end of the season. I think cornerback's going to be a sneaky position to need for the New York Jets, and I wouldn't mind taking a swing on a guy that should have gone a lot higher at this point in the draft. The other player, Braylon Allen, the running back out of Wisconsin. I really like him. He is going to be 20 years old until January 20th, which means he's basically not going to be able to drink alcohol until after the Jets AFC Championship game, and going to the Super Bowl is how he's going to have his first drink. That's what I want to see. This is a big, beefy running back that is violent with the ball in his hands. We're going to be more between the tackles, so a different type of running back compared to Izzy and compared to Brees. I think, God forbid, you lose Brees for any amount of time, you can have a nice complement between Allen and between Izzy Abanikanda. So those are the players that I've kind of identified. I really, really want to come away with some studs here. I'm surprised we didn't have to give up more. I'm surprised we didn't have to give up a 4th-round pick to move up to go get Corley. Only giving up the 5th-round pick was really, really nice to see. Guys, I want to hear from you. What players have you identified as the Jets should go after? What do you think of the Malachi Corley pick? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.
Jets!